Hey everybody, it's Sam over at Scorpio Rising Astrology, and we are here for a new series called Signs 101. And today is Tuesday, so we'll be recording the videos for Aries and Scorpio, the two Mars-ruled signs. And whether you've been studying astrology for a while or you're totally new to it, here's a primer on what to expect from people with strong Aries placements. Let's pull up a quick PowerPoint and we'll go over the basics. Okay. Da, da, da. Technology. Technology. Here we go. Okay, so Aries 101, the ram on fire. This is what we're really talking about when we describe Aries as an astrological sign. Aries is the archetype of the ram. Aries is fiery. But what does all of this mean? Let's go ahead and talk about Aries stats. Each sign has a makeup of characteristics that really tells us what to expect when these signs are prominently focused in a natal chart. As in, if somebody has their ascendant, their moon, or their sun in these signs, and they have been stamped or graced by this sign's qualities, what does that mean for their life, for their personality, etc.? Okay. So, let's move my head over here. Yeah, that's fine. So Aries, first and foremost, is a fire sign. Yeah, fire is the element that is composed of the energetic tissue states known as hot and dry. That makes Aries rather impulsive, quick. It also makes Aries prone to things like excitement and anger. But then it also makes them a little bit more devoid of emotion due to dryness. Wet is the energetic tissue state of emotion. And so when we look at Aries being fiery, it also denotes a little bit of a lack of those more yin elements, which would be things like rest, which would be things like self-care, which would be things like listening skills, which would be things like empathy. Aries is not necessarily about chilling. Aries is not necessarily about stepping back and considering options. Aries is about moving forward, and fire is the element of light and movement that is always active and burning. And so we don't really see a lot of the yin qualities in Aries because of that elemental association. But not just because of the element, we also have the mode of Aries being cardinal. So in addition to the element, every sign is assigned a mode or a mode of being, right? We have cardinal, fixed, and mutable, which if you've studied any Ayurveda, also align with Pitta, Vata, and Kapha, cardinal, mutable, fixed, respectively. So when we look at cardinal fire, as opposed to the mutable fire of Sagittarius and the fixed fire of Leo, cardinality means that this particular sign is going to be even more upfront, even more forward, even more about dynamically charging into battle. And this is really where we see the ruling planet Mars and the symbol of the ram's horns starting to come in from an Aries symbology perspective. You know, Aries being ruled by Mars, the planet of war, and the warrior archetype is very much a good image to think of when we think of Aries. You know, spear in one hand, shield in another, often cloaked in red, the color of blood, and seeking to destroy one's enemies through forward advancement and military strategy. That is a very strong side of Aries, and this is where Aries gets some of the virtues that we'll talk about a little bit later. Now, it is very important to recognize, especially if you're a beginner in astrology, what the glyph of Aries looks like. So we can see the ram's horns here as the major symbol. And that's just something to kind of keep in your mind. The highest virtue of Aries is going to be leadership, you know, not just the fire elements like the torch that is carried in order to light the way for others, but also the cardinality mode of charging forward, of taking initiative, of being first, and that preemptive strike in battle. You know, that is the highest virtue of Aries, is to move forward with clarity and truth, a clarity and truth that may be born out of ignorance, may be born out of research, we don't know, but largely it's going to be just the raw ability to move forward and make that split-second decision, and to stick with one's guns and to really generate momentum behind that decision once you get the ball rolling. Aries really doesn't like to hesitate or to waffle over decisions. Those are going to be some of the other signs that we look at during this exploration. The deepest weakness of Aries is going to be causing damage. And although Aries is cardinal fire and will often be referred to as bull in a china shop, although we're talking about a ram, you know, ram in a china shop, really, excuse me. But the deepest weakness of Aries is causing damage, because what damage does is it starts to shatter the faith of those who Aries would lead. If, you know, damage in the construct of war is thought of as conquering, you know, or casualty. But damage in regards to social standing, you know, if Aries gets a little bit too competitive, if Aries gets a little bit too fiery, a little bit too much of that energy, excuse me, too much of that energy starts to burn, yeah, then Aries starts to cause damage, and that damage will then make the followers of Aries, which Aries is trying to lead, lose faith in their abilities, because they start to see, oh, these decisions that Aries is making, they're reckless, they're impulsive, they're not necessarily well thought out. And because of that, they're actually doing more harm than good. And that is essentially the shadow side of Aries, is doing more harm than good because of these impulsive qualities. So as long as Aries is able to act quickly, but to act with information and to act with a solid baseline and conviction of why those actions are pure and true and good, then that's going to be how we kind of divert the deepest weakness of causing damage. And often as Aries matures in a chart, they'll really start to understand that balance much, much more. People who have Aries, especially if you have those people close to you in your life, just remember that they need fun. They need a little bit of competition, and they constantly need inspiration. You know, fire is the element that is the most conditional. Without the proper balance of dryness and heat, the friction to create it, the fuel source to keep it burning, the oxygen levels to do the same, or the winds to spread the fire, there's just an extinguishing, right? So the fun that keeps things really, really excited, the competition which brings that friction, and then the inspiration to keep that fire fueled and happy is really what we want to look at to nourish a good Aries placement. On the flip side, Aries is smothered by a few things. Every sign has weaknesses and things that make it feel not so great. Aries are specifically going to have weaknesses around rules, emotions, and opinions. Now, when we look at the other cardinal signs, these are the virtues of the other cardinal signs. Rules belong to Capricorn, and Capricorn is the exaltation sign of Mars, Aries' planet. But Aries, as the impulsive fire sign, really doesn't like to be blocked in or told what to do. Capricorn prefers and thrives in rules, but Aries not so much. So although rules are supposed to be present with competition, and they can even make competition more interesting, too many rules, too many legalities, too many walls or boundaries to bump up against, and Aries gets very frustrated very quick. Emotions are another thing that Aries doesn't really handle very well. As the cardinal fire sign, again, it's about moving forward and it's about shining bright with Aries. Emotions tend to make things too heavy. Emotions tend to literally be the source of that Cancerian water cardinality that we see giving strength to another sign. But Aries, water puts out fire. And so if Aries starts to get too much in their feelings, if they start to experience things like melancholy or emotional attachment, then that starts to screw with their fire and really mess up a lot of their energetic balance. So emotions can be somewhat dangerous to Aries. Now, emotions can also be like gasoline to Aries if they're positive and sparked with like lots of really, really good energy or upliftment. But here, when we talk about emotions, we're largely talking about kind of the heavier things, things that the water signs will navigate very well with. But a fire sign like Aries, who's more about taking that single pointed focus and charging forward with it, emotions just get in the way. Opinions, the options of Libra, the air cardinal sign, are going to be the absolute worst thing that Aries could encounter. Libra really enjoys considering the options and playing devil's advocate and noting how many ways something can be termed right. Whereas Aries prefers to pick an option and run with it. There is no debate with Aries. Aries is about charging forward and making things happen and not thinking too much about it. So when we start to see opinions or other people's opinions specifically saying what's right, what's wrong, oh, that decision, could be split into two possible avenues. It's kind of like mental rules, right? And the splitting of hairs doesn't really do well with Mars or Aries, who prefer to take charge. And again, when we think of that Mars symbol, the circle with the arrow, like that's very much what Aries and Mars like to do, is they like to just pick an option and go with it instead of contemplating what's actually right, what's actually wrong, what are the benefits, what are the drawbacks. That's somebody else's business, not necessarily Aries. Okay, so that's Aries in a nutshell. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, if you would like to talk a little bit more about Aries, if any of these rung true for you, or if you think that I missed something, feel free to add questions, comments, concerns in the comments for the video below, and we will continue on with all the signs in this fashion. I am a professional astrologer, so if you would like to learn astrology or if you would like to schedule a private consult, you can always go to my website, scorpiorisingastrology.com, click the online classes for all of my downloadable online classes that I've done, as well as click the consultations page if you would like to set up a private reading with me in the meantime. Until the next video, may the stars be ever in your favor.